Hold up, hold up.
Alright, he's recording, good.
The recording
Hold up.
button's hit.
Wait, why do we need an opener?
I don't know.
Because why the fuck not have it?
Why we
Okay.
why we
Wait,
do
wait,
this? I
wait.
don't know, but we're gonna talk about video games.
So this is a very impromptu pilot podcast thing that we're doing within the. What is our team name now? Holy shit! Are we the SJWs or are we the
I don't
fucking
know.
WM1s?
What the fuck are we?
I don't remember.
Banana
Anyway,
Squad.
this is my Team Fortress 2 team's mumble channel, and we're just gonna do some impromptu talk because apparently we're deep inspirational.
Because apparently-
We're deep in
Apparently some
inspirational
people have a poor opinion saying that
Oh,
A
fuck
Link
you.
Between Worlds is better than A Link to the Past.
I know
Wait,
I'm
we
playing
talk-
devil's advocate here. Okay, hang on. Let's introduce people. Okay, so
Hold up.
no,
Alright,
you're not
let's go.
holding up.
Fuck you.
Okay, so my name is Deku, and this is probably going to go on my YouTube channel at some point. Let's introduce. So we have AsianGamer here. Say hi,
Hi.
Asian. Yeah, we have.
I'm Asian.
I think it's a whole mumble is Asian, except for Polar. We have, speaking of which, SilentPolarBear. He's
Hello.
possibly autistic. We don't know.
Oh wow, fuck you.
And we have Cody Ggumby, darn it,
Yo.
over there. See yo, yeah. So we are talking about the profoundness of Zelda games of all things, and Nintendo, or well, Zelda games. So the question is, what makes A Link Between Worlds or A Link to the Past the better game? And I am
It's
arguing in
that.
defense of A Link Between Worlds because I feel like that's the
That.
better game.
No, what was your last point? That the Dark World in...
I don't
Okay,
believe that the Dark World is more or is less gimmicky than the use of traversing into the wall to wind
Okay,
up on the
merging
other
with
side.
the wall, I'll explain why it was gimmicky. Because there was no way to solve any dungeon, any puzzle, aside from the first one, that you didn't have to merge into a wall. It was the only thing you had to do to solve everything, and it was easy. Nothing about the game was difficult. If it was an actual difficult mechanic that forced you to look at a dungeon differently to solve it, if it forced you to look at everything in a different way that actually required thinking, then it would be a very great mechanic they introduced. But it was so easy. The entire game was so easy, and I felt like this mechanic it wasn't necessary one bit.
I would argue that the difficulty curve is more in line with just not having the dungeons designed
looked like
with
a
the
ruler.
mindset. No, because the dungeons weren't designed with the fact that, oh hey, we have an entire arsenal being rented out. I will agree that the game was too easy, but I believe that the way the dungeons were created and designed was much more interesting than any Zelda game I've had before.
Oh yeah, no, that was great. Now it was
No, so like, why would the wall merging be gimmicky then?
it didn't bring anything. It didn't bring anything. It was like when
okay, the sand pillar dungeon, you had to constantly merge with the wall.
I didn't like doing it. Okay, now
Why didn't you? It was literally pressing the button.
Okay, hold up.
Pressing A button near a wall. You
Okay.
fucking.
From my perspective here, the only reason why Gumby doesn't like this game is because of the damn wall merging, and is because he's so fucking lazy.
No. Here's the thing.
I agree.
That is the
The
only
wall
reason I
merging-
see so far. Is
No,
because
the wall
I don't
merging,
want to merge with walls. I'm fucking lazy.
it doesn't make me lazy. I would say if
Yes,
I
it
was,
does.
all right. I
He beat
wouldn't
the
like
game.
it.
He did beat the game.
I wouldn't like it if it was hard. Now, the wall merging was easy to do. It didn't take up any time. I just felt like it didn't bring anything to the game. It was like when
But-
Twilight Princess was like, hey, check it out. We're going to put this remote control in your hand, and in order to attack anything, you have to flail your arm.
See, that I would call kind of gimmicky.
That was the definition
Here,
of
here.
gimmicky, and it hurt.
Here
I like
is
To
Twilight
be fair,
Princess.
there was a GameCube version of that game though.
okay. Question: why the fuck were you playing Twilight Princess?
It was a good game. I mean, it wasn't the
I-
best Zelda
Wait,
game.
why say Twilight Princess?
What?
The tone of the game
Ew.
and the art style was probably the most unique in terms of a Zelda game.
I liked Twilight Princess overall. I just feel like it was overly long, and in the sense of it was trying too hard to be like this epic.
Oh god, it took 2 hours to get to the first dungeon.
I know.
Okay, here.
Hey,
I'm just gonna say
you
one
especially
show
thing.
in
me
the
how to
beginning.
swing a sword. I don't know how physics works.
Okay, here. I'm just
And
gonna
the,
I'm just gonna say one thing. Your goal for this is to convince me that your game better. Go.
Oh,
That's true. Okay.
Just go.
we need a point, don't we?
God damn it. Okay. So let's do final statements. You can interrupt or argue or whatever if you want, but whatever. So we'll do why A Link to the Past is a profound game in the Zelda series first.
It was perfect.
Okay, you need a better argument than
Wait,
that.
are you
you
sure?
need a
Do
much-
I?
You need,
Yes,
you need
better
some
one.
reasoning behind that, because like I've never played any of the Zelda games before. I said I played
Yeah, for
similar
real.
like Zelda,
Okay,
played
okay.
like similar.
All right, fine. Let me get an
games that
actual
are like
point
Zelda.
here. Oh, how he says podcast and Mons disconnects.
Okay, s-
I know.
Okay, first off, it was the only Zelda game that actually had an appropriate difficulty curve and absolute perfect pacing to the game.
You call the perfect difficulty curve being
What's-
smacked around by Mordorm in the first dungeon off the thing constantly. The first fucking dungeon, you couldn't even get past it.
That
I
wasn't
did,
the
but I
first
mean,
one.
it took forever.
That was the third one.
Oh,
What's
whatever. It was really,
perfect?
really
The first
fucking
one
early
was
on.
the 6 Knights, and you had to use your arrows, and it was like, oh, hey, cool, let me defeat these. The second one was the dudes that flew overhead, and you had to dodge their attacks while you had to attack them, which was cool. And then the third one was the Moldorm, which bounced you all over the fucking place, and it was extremely difficult, and you're like, whoa, I beat the Light World now. Now I get to go beat Aghanim, or however the fuck you say his name.
Aghanim, yeah.
Then you got
Okay,
to the
go on.
Dark World. Then the difficulty had 7 levels of depth, and not only was it insanely difficult, but you actually felt accomplished because it strayed away from this new... Actually, I shouldn't say it strayed away because it never applied itself to this 3 hits and the boss is dead as rigidly as the new Zelda games do. Now, it definitely did. I mean, the Moldorm, I think you had to hit it 3 times and you won. But like the first dungeon in the Dark World, you had to hit the dude like 7 times with a hammer before you could even knock his mask off, and then you had to hit him with arrows or your sword. The boss challenges
That's the
felt
Helm
like
story,
a
yeah?
challenge, and it was great. It's just too bad because ever since then, every Zelda game, including and especially A Link Between Worlds, every boss battle was insanely easy and tended to use the gimmicks of merging into the wall in order to beat the boss.
Okay, well, let me say this. The whole trope of, hi, I found an item. I'm going to use it in this dungeon, and I'm going to use it against this boss, and never use it again other than the overworld. That wasn't a trope introduced by A Link Between, A Link to the Past.
Oh yeah,
That was
no,
very much an issue with A Link to the Past.
yeah, that was
where
a big weakness.
the item that you found in that dungeon was only being used in that dungeon, maybe in the overworld occasionally, and definitely for the boss.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think it needed more variety, like maybe incorporating multiple items into a boss fight, or maybe just not making it necessary. I think there was only one of those in the entire game.
I will
But-
say narratively that A Link to the Past had the more epic story.
Wouldn't you argue that A Link Between Worlds suffers from the same thing?
Of what?
Of using an item. For example, you need the
Per dungeon?
yeah, you need a
No,
specific
I
item to
would
get
not argue that.
in a lot of dungeons, in a lot of them. You need to rent the item before you can go into the dungeon. And then when you go into the dungeon, you're going to use that rented item throughout this entire dungeon.
okay, so from
There
what
were
I'm
certain dungeons that didn't even open unless you had a certain item.
okay, so from
Okay.
So from what I'm hearing right now, Gumby's argument is that the bosses are harder. It's more of a challenge. The items and the item stuff, I'm too lazy to talk about the item stuff. The item stuff, you have to go get an item to be able to do stuff, which is true for both games. So
It is true for both games, and I will say it's a weakness of both games.
yeah. Um,
Okay. Should I make my argument then?
Yes.
yes.
In the favor
Little,
of a
like yes.
Link Between Worlds.
Yes.
Yes. Jesus.
Oh God. Can I retain control over this conversation
Yes.
a little bit? Anyway, so I would say A Link Between Worlds is mechanically better in a lot of sense, and that's in partially due to the improvement of technology. Being able to render things in 3D is a great asset because you can have layers to a dungeon that you wouldn't be able to in real time, unlike Link to the Past, where oftentimes it would need an awkward scene transition to show that there is a layer to the dungeon that you can fall through. A Link Between Worlds, you can immediately fall through and then come back without resetting the upper start part of the dungeon. Also, I would argue that the new mechanic of merging into the walls forced players to identify obstacles differently. I was oftentimes looking at obstacles like, oh, how would I be able to best traverse this space with the tools that I have? The mechanic of being able to enter a dungeon in any order that you want after the first two was really fun for me because I decided the order that I wanted to accomplish things. And because of that, unfortunately, all the dungeons were a bit too easy. But on the other hand, I got to decide my preferred method of conquering them. There was also a lot more in terms of extraneous questing where you could do other things other than the main mission. And that's a thing that newer Zelda games have been doing. But the way that they reward you for doing these extraneous quests were definitely worth something. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I got a rupee. No, you got improvements uh to your bag or your new items like the improved lantern and an improved bug net you could only do from the tower in the ice area. Um, the bosses and the dungeons, while there was obviously a recommended choice in weaponry because you had the option of going through these dungeons in any way, shape, or form. Oftentimes, I found myself seeing, okay, that's the way that they want me to conquer this dungeon, but how about how I want to conquer this dungeon? And sometimes, after entering like 3 or 4 of these dungeons, I wouldn't even use the item that they seemed to be indicating was the preference. Oftentimes, I would wind up with a item choice completely of my own. For instance, trying to think of a good. Okay, so like the thieves' hideout, right?
Yeah.
That's the one with the.
The thieves
Yeah. You don't
that
actually
were hiding.
require. No, but you don't actually require um anything other than your sword actually in the
Actually,
ability to merge.
I'm glad you brought that up because there is one thing that you do need, and like you said, the ability to merge. You remember the boss battle when you actually had to fight the head thief?
Merge onto the but that's an interesting boss battle because the entire mechanic isn't relying on a gimmicky weapon. It's instead reinforcing the fact that you can merge into things, including the shield of the boss.
Wouldn't you argue that that's a gimmicky item in itself?
But you use it in other dungeons constantly,
But
and the overworld.
here's why I didn't like it, and specifically I was going to use that boss battle. In this boss battle, you have to hit the dude. Then, as you hit him, he kind of, what is it? He puts his shield up, I think, and you have to merge onto his shield. Then, when you merge onto his shield, he's like, oh no, where'd you go? And he turns around like an idiot and stands there for the next 15 seconds. I mean, it was something ridiculous like that. I had to walk up.
Mechanically speaking, it's an interesting fight.
Right, but
I'm
you have
not
to do that
saying
3
that it
times
wasn't
now.
easy. I'm not saying it wasn't easy. I'm saying mechanically speaking, it was an interesting fight that we haven't done before.
Okay.
It was only different because it was a different
Okay.
item.
From my standpoint,
How about the Dark Palace? That's a dungeon that's incredibly reliant on. Well, it's reliant on only the lamp, but you don't require the lamp to complete it technically, because oftentimes you can just swipe out lights so that you because the honest to god thing that the Dark Palace was trying to do was you didn't need to light anything to proceed. What you needed to do was turn off the lights by getting rid of lighting in the dungeon. Did that particularly need a single item?
No, it didn't.
Okay,
But I think that's where it also suffers from its difficulty.
Okay.
so Deku's so from Deku, I hear it's pretty much better mechanics. Better.
Polar, you're like cut it.
Yeah, I can't hear you at all. Where did you go?
Comcast internet.
Oh god, super good internet. And poof.
No. So like basically
Sim-
my argument in a nutshell is, oh my god, he's back.
Is he? I think he's
Hello?
half back. I think
Friends?
he's like,
Oh god.
Yay! Hello.
yay!
Hi.
Okay, so Deku, your argument is
Hi,
story
so
goes
what-
into
what?
more depth. It might be a simpler game, but it's a better game overall. There's simpler levels, there's harder levels, but overall it's just a better game.
Just mechanically speaking, it does everything quote unquote better. Like, sure, there's things that it recommends you to do, but you can always look for a alternative. And there's not always an alternative, but there's always the option to use stuff that you wouldn't expect to be using in that dungeon.
I would say that argument only. The only reason why A Link to the Past could possibly suffer from this sort of thing is because of when it was actually released. The
But
formula.
that doesn't mean that it's a better game. Because release time saying, oh, this was the limitations of the hardware. Well, that doesn't mean that it's still a better game. Maybe a classic game, but a better game is in terms of the entire package of enjoyment overall.
Uh-huh. Right, but I think it's how it attempted to do it. Okay, so its formula was great. It enabled you to go to whatever dungeon you want at any point that you wanted, and it was great. But the game, again, its difficulty suffered so much that it felt like it didn't mean anything. You were able to
Would you say
explore
that the
things.
dungeons that you went into weren't interesting?
They
Did they
were
not
cool.
feel varied enough or interesting enough to you?
They varied. I liked that it actually is now scenery-wise, yes, but gameplay-wise, not much. The only one that really kind of mixed it up for me was the completely vertical one. I believe that was the tower.
The Tower of Hera?
Yeah, it was completely vertical, and it was very interesting
That's
on how
a
they
very
did
vertical
that.
dungeon.
Yeah, but the rest of them, the difficulty didn't back it up. I always knew how to solve a puzzle because I had to merge into a wall at where the walkway ended, and then merge into a wall, and then keep going until where the walkway starts again. And it was usually something along those lines. Maybe I had to merge into a wall to dodge the
I would say
object.
the ice
but
ruins were pretty vertical too.
yeah,
The ice ruins
not
were
quite
pretty
as
vertical
vertical.
too.
But you know what I mean? Like the formula was there. They had the potential, but a big thing that's just held back every Zelda game, in my opinion, is the fact that they have no difficulty. Again, in The Link to the Past, when you actually beat that game, you felt very accomplished because it starts off with
So,
easy dungeons and then works its way up to some of the most difficult dungeons you've ever played.
like, my point is, like, nostalgia glosses are great. I will never say that A Link to the Past is a terrible game. It's aged tremendously well. It has, but mechanically speaking, it is a weaker game than A Link Between Worlds. You know, A Link to the Past is weaker than A Link Between Worlds because there's too many links in these fucking titles.
I know.
Oh my god, there's Link's Awakening too, and Link's Adventure. We don't talk about that one.
There's a lot
No,
of
but,
Zelda games we can not talk about. We can leave those ones wherever they are.
I mean, I've played every Zelda game.
Really?
I have. Yeah.
You actually made it through Zelda 2?
Yes, I did.
Wow. Respect.
The thing with Zelda 2 it's a lot of fun if you stop thinking of it as a Zelda game. And I know that seems like a falling point, but if you really think
No, it
about it,
makes
it was the
sense.
second in a series, you know,
I
and
can see that.
there was no constructed norm at the time for Zelda games.
Nah, you're right.
It
You're right.
was very interesting if you could bring yourself out of it being a Zelda game and just play through it. And then it was just like,
I mean, Zelda
is
1 and
kinda
2,
fun.
they were both before I was even born, so I can't really.
that is true.
I mean, Zelda 3, which was A Link to the Past,
Yeah.
technically I was born, but I was born the same year it came out, so I don't think that
It's
counts.
literally 1 year older than me.
Now, I will
So,
admit,
it's
I'm
gone
probably
for
blinded a lot
the
by
past-
nostalgia.
I was gone for the past 3 minutes, so repeat anything you've just said over the past 3 minutes.
Oh. We were basically
No, we're
kind of
not.
reiterating what you said and said a lot of Zelda games are
True.
bad. But I will admit, I'm probably blinded a lot by nostalgia. A Link to the Past was, I think, the first game I actually ever played.
It was actually the first game I ever beat.
I think the same for both. I mean, if you don't count those storybook games, like I don't know, the Magic School Bus goes to space or something like
my
that.
God.
Like that shit was.
Is there a way to beat that?
That was my shit. That game was great.
I used to play putt-putt.
Oh, fucking putt goes to
And,
the moon. Oh my god.
And Freddy Fish too.
Bro, are we soulmates? I think we are, man. Those are all my best games right there. I actually watched
Anyway.
somebody just play through Putt Goes to the Moon for like 30 minutes.
What? When?
And I was sober is the best part. I'm just staring at this shit on YouTube.
Did you play?
No, I just
did
looked
you
it
play
up.
Tonka? Did you play the Tonka game
I
for
wasn't
the
about
PC?
Tonka, man. I was more Lego.
No, the no.
Tonka's cool. Though.
Wait, okay.
Hold up.
Lego
Hold
Island.
up.
Lego
The
Island 2.
fucking Tonka
I played
game,
that. I
Tonka
played that.
Construction
Aren't
Work
we talking about-
2001 was my shit right there. I am not kidding you.
Okay, well we have a show.
We were talking about Zelda, right? What was I saying? Okay,
Yeah, we were.
I'm probably blinded by nostalgia. I'm probably blinded by the fact that I think this is a perfect game, and I will admit to that. I will say that I agree with the faults that Link to the Past has, such as a very guided sort of rule set. I think there's only 2 dungeons
It was
that
very hand-holdy.
It almost was.
Not hand-holdy, no, but it was very. This is what you need to do. This is where
Yeah.
you need to go. I wouldn't say hand-holdy because it was difficult as shit.
Yeah,
But I mean,
you can't be like, okay, but Billy just walked through this maze of fire and spikes. You can't hold the child's hand through that, but you can tell him exactly how to do it. And that's what A Link to the Past was. It was a structured game that had a great difficulty curve, great challenges, a great pacing. The pacing was perfect. And I would say Link, the new one, can't get the name. Fucking too many Link names. The 3DS one
damn it.
had the same pacing almost. Now I'm not gonna. It's probably because they tried to dumb it down a lot, with like this childish sort of feel to it. And oh no, you got to go to the graveyard and you look for the thing. And then you go and talk to the guy again, and he's like, "Hey, press your B." It wasn't as bad as Twilight Princess. It wasn't nearly as bad as Skyward Sword.
Bringing up Twilight
But
Princess.
It kind of
What the
had those
fuck?
elements.
Am I the only one
It
here
was
that
good.
has not played
It
that
was good.
fucking
It was
game?
okay.
What the?
Yeah. Now, with that aside, though, with the whole, you use this item, you go to the dungeon, you go to the next dungeon. I think there's only 2 dungeons that you could do out of order in A Link to the Past. I would say that A Link to the Past wins in every other regard. Now, A Link Between Worlds wins where it has an unstructured open world element to it, almost open world. You can go to whatever dungeon you want, and that's cool. And that was its only strength. It
Would you say that mechanically speaking, being able to move in 8 directions, control a Link perfectly, and also have smooth scrolling between levels is a downside to A Link Between Worlds
Maybe.
over A Link to the Past?
I'm gonna say maybe.
Why?
A big thing about Link to the Past was being able to exploit certain enemies at angles. Their sword stuck out on one side, you had to approach them from the other side. In A Link Between Worlds, it felt spammy. You could run up and just keep smacking your sword because you could swing it so damn fast and it went an entire 180 in front of you. You could just smack somebody until, I don't know, you knock them into a wall and then you just beat the shit out of them in a corner. In A Link to the Past, it required you to understand every character model, every enemy model, and how to approach each one. In this one, I can run up and swing the shit out of my sword and not give a fuck what happens. Like,
But you also have full control over your
you
character.
do.
Whereas A Link to the Past, I used to have frustrations trying to decide whether or not I was on this axis or this axis because it was 8-direction, but it was 8-direction in SNES rather than a full analog
If you
stick.
played Link to the Past with a joystick, you think that would make it easier?
I mean, I've tried, but I don't really think that that's I played it on the virtual console
Now,
before. It didn't
mechanically,
help.
it's a lot smoother. It's polished. It lets things happen easier. But again, it dumbs down a lot of things. You no longer have to worry about ammo, magic, bombs. It's like, oh, wait 4 seconds, and you have all of your arrows back. You run at the dude because you'll kill him eventually.
Okay, well, okay. Let's say that they brought back the ammo mechanic then, right? Would you really enjoy breaking pots to find more ammo? I mean, sure, it increases tension, but you still have that tension from waiting for your magic meter to really fully recharge. I've had moments when I played the second quest. Obviously, the difficulty was ramped up, where I was just like, "Oh shit!" I wasn't watching because it's a stamina meter, and I'm out of stamina, and I can't do anything. Period. I can't use any item. Period. It's like ridiculous.
Ah.
That's pretty stressful.
No, it is. It is. But it felt cheap to me. I mean,
Okay.
you definitely had to still smash some pots, but you mean to tell me I don't have to smash pots anymore in a Zelda game? Again, I'm arguing that it's kind of core, and I shouldn't be using coreness as an argument at all. Especially, I mean, if anything,
It really shouldn't be because honestly, I feel like mechanics should beat convention.
yeah, they should. They should.
I would argue that.
And they almost did it in this game, but it just needed more girth. It's like I sat on a pencil.
Girth.
Yep.
Wow. You really wanted it to just
No, I did.
tear
I
open
did.
that. Okay.
Tore open a
Got
lot
it.
of things.
Got it.
So we're only going to talk about are we only going to talk about Zelda today, or
We can talk about other things, but I feel like we should wrap up this particular episode as we're hitting the half-hour mark, and then we can do another one.
you guys
We're
can
gonna wrap
finish
this
your
one up,
little
and we
argument?
might record some more.
I will say I didn't exactly throw down arguments. I didn't exactly like lay my case down for A Link to the Past. I'm just more arguing that A Link Between Worlds doesn't have the girth that it should. In order for a game to like have a one up on another game, it has to feel like it. And again, I'm just saying it didn't.
You don't feel like it was as epic as
I
Link to the
don't.
Past
I
was?
don't. Mostly because I felt like everything was handed to me. If this game was more difficult, if they had A Link Between Worlds, but it had the difficulty of A Link to the Past, it might be a perfect game.
Okay, I would be reasonably okay with that, actually. Bye.